chronological investigative analysis of once classified intelligence reports, corporate papers, copyright and trademark records, court documents, and other public records has exposed a massive and pervasive coordination of the executive and judicial branches in order to effect a cover-up, since at least 1972, of copyrighted Scientology technologies being illegally utilized in United States strategic intelligence. The study shows that the cover-up has reached all the way to the Oval Office in both Republican and Democratic administrations, including those of George Bush and Jimmy Carter. Bush's knowledge and involvement dates back at least to his term as Director of Central Intelligence. The timeline of events documents that an employee of the National Security Agency, NSA, Dr. Harold Puthoff, infiltrated Scientology, completed its confidential upper-level courses, and almost immediately secured a top-secret contract with the Central Intelligence Agency to set up the CIA-initiated remote viewing intelligence program. The evidence is that the program secretly utilized Scientology techniques, intellectual property of Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard without Hubbard's or any Scientology organization's knowledge or permission, and without compensation. The study also shows that Scientology's Guardian's Office, GO, headed by Hubbard's wife Mary Sue, had province over the intellectual properties being illegally used by the federal government. The GO became embroiled in protracted litigation via the churches of numerous Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, suits against NSA, the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, the Department of Defense, the Secret Service, and other executive branch departments and agencies. The FOIA suits sought the release of documents related to Scientology and to L. Ron Hubbard that were known to exist, but were being withheld by the federal intelligence agencies and the Defense Department, among others, on grounds of national security. One ruling against the Scientologists even went so far as to justify withholding of documents about Scientology on the grounds that the director of CIA is responsible for protecting intelligence sources and METHODS from unauthorized disclosure. Emphasis added. Neither Hubbard, his wife, nor the Guardian's office knew the exact nature of the documents, nor about Hubbard's copyrighted materials being illegally used by the federal intelligence agencies. Scientology's FOIA suits span the very time when the top-secret Scientology-based remote viewing program and budget were not only being expanded, but were being utilized by the Department of Defense, the President's National Security Council, NSC, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But the documents being sought by the Guardian's office were never released. The FBI raided the church's offices in July of 1977, and the federal government filed criminal charges accusing Mary Sue Hubbard and the Guardian's office of criminal spying, a strange irony. The sensational case resulted in Mary Sue Hubbard and 10 Guardian's office co-defendants being sentenced to jail without a trial by federal Judge Charles R. Ritchie, which led to the ultimate disbanding of Scientology's Guardian's office. This opened the way for a new senior corporation, Church of Spiritual Technology, CSD, doing business as the L. Ron Hubbard Library. It was set up in 1982, right after the Supreme Court had upheld Mary Sue Hubbard's conviction for the express purpose of gaining receivership and control of L. Ron Hubbard's copyrights. But it was in the founding of this corporation that the first hint of the cover-up by the federal government lay buried. In an exclusive 1997 story, the Public Research Foundation reported that Meade Emery, former assistant to the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service and former legislation attorney, Joint Committee on Taxation, had been a co-founder of CSD, Scientology's most senior corporation. That corporation now controls the copyrights for all of L. Ron Hubbard's intellectual properties, once valued at close to $100 million. CSD also enjoys ultimate authority over all Scientology-related trademarks, including even the name, L. Ron Hubbard. But the discovery of Emery, a non-Scientologist, in such an unusual position raised red flags, since Emery's involvement in setting up the corporation had been hidden for 15 years. Then it was learned that Emery had been assistant to Commissioner of IRS Donald C. Alexander from 1975 through 1977. Strangely, those were the very years that an IRS employee, Gerald Wolfe, was supposedly a Scientology double agent, guilty of numerous thefts of IRS documents for Mary Sue Hubbard and the Guardian's office, leading to the arrests and convictions. Other oddities also surfaced. 1. According to a U.S. Claims Court ruling, none of the founders of CSD, but one had any religious connection with Scientology. They were non-Scientologist tax and probate attorneys. 2. The October 1993 IRS tax exemption for CSD was granted in a then-secret closing agreement only after a final roundup of every intellectual property ever produced by L. Ron Hubbard had been completed. 3. On November 29, 1993, scarcely 2 months after CSD had been granted tax exemption by IRS in a secret closing agreement, all 7,730 of L. Ron Hubbard's copyrights were quietly transferred to CSD. PRF's original press release and supporting documents about Meade Emery's ties to CSD were sent to major newspapers including the Wall Street Journal and to Senator William V. Roth, Jr., Finance Committee Chairman and Vice Chairman of the Joint Committee on Taxation. Within 15 days, the secret agreement between IRS and CSD et al. Was leaked to WSJ, who never ran the story on Emery. But the IRS closing agreement, once released, revealed that it had been the final step in the United States government's 20-year campaign to secretly get L. Ron Hubbard's copyrighted technologies and techniques being illegally used by federal agencies in strategic intelligence firmly under secret federal government control. Putting the copyrights in a 501 c. corporation bypassed the separation clause of the Constitution, because CSD, despite its name, is not a church. So certain was the IRS that the secret agreement would never be exposed that it included a continued conspiracy clause, requiring all signatories to agree in collusion to protect Meade Emery and all other, current or former, employees of IRS and the United States government against any and all claims of their having been involved in a continued conspiracy. Yet it was just such a continued conspiracy that apparently had brought the secret closing agreement into being. The federal government further secured its position by secretly setting up an illegal and unconstitutional Church Tax Compliance Committee to enforce Treasury regulations on the structure and function of the various Scientology organizations, including permanent installations of tax compliance officers in each organization. Senator Roth's inaction on the executive summary regarding Meade Emery's involvement with the creation of Scientology's most senior corporation has now raised questions whether the legislative branch has been involved in the cover-up as well. 12 months was all they needed to take over Scientology. May 81, Sherman Lensk appears, claims to be the attorney of LRH. July 81, Mary Sue Hubbard is removed from the position of controller. October 81, Sherman Lensk and others forms Author Services, Inc., ASI. November 81, Sherman Lensk and others forms the Church of Scientology International, CSI. January 82, Sherman Lensk and others forms the Religious Technology Center, RTC. May 82, RTC receives the trademarks. May 82, Sherman Lensk, Meade Emery and others forms Church of Spiritual Technology, CSD. Today Scientology is owned by CSD. Meade Emery is a tax lawyer who worked for the IRS in 1975-77. About 1975-77, it's during this time period when documents are stolen from IRS, the docs which appear with the Co-S Guardian's office. It's because of this theft that MSH is convicted and removed from the post of controller. With MSH gone, Lensk, Emery and others is able to take possession of Scientology. The following is probably true. Sherman Lensk and Meade Emery were the ones who did it, by the order of someone. Probably Sykes, but these two gentlemen is the real reason behind the problems in the Co-S. They made a deal with David Miscavige and brought him to power, out. maneuvered LRH and MSH, and they have been doing whatever they wanted with the COS and its members since. We are likely to find a site connection behind Lensk and Emery. The purpose was to stop Scientology. It was not money.